You're listening to the Play It Brave podcast. Join Darcy for a wild rummage around in her wit and wisdom. She's a photographer, an educator, and a marketing ninja. Each week, she's going to be teaching you all about creating a life full of mindset, money, and marketing miracles. Listen to real-world experiences and surefire strategies from expert guests, all to keep you focused on your path to success. Think less hand-holding or fist bumps. So stop playing safe. It's time to start playing it brave. Here's your host, Darcy Benenkosa.
Hi, welcome to the Play It Brave podcast. On this episode, I have someone who is a bit of a superstar to me, Jen Olmstead, co-founder of Tonic Site Shop. She founded it with her good friend, Jeff Shipley. And Jen, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today because I use Tonic. I love Tonic. Tonic has changed my business in so many ways that I'm going to dive into on this podcast. And I just think you are a creative genius. And I think you understand brands more than anyone I have seen in the industry. So welcome to Play It Brave. I'm so excited you're here.
I mean, what an intro. Thank you so much for having me. If you can just repeat that again and then maybe 3 more times, then I'll call my mom. And
your mother better be listening to this. My mother doesn't even know what a podcast is. So I know. My mom doesn't even have an email. She's like, what do you do all day at home? I'm like, I don't know. We won't talk about it. But,
my mom has come a long way because she used to sign all of her text messages, Mom, and now she doesn't anymore. So I'm like, we are moving forward in this world.
That is amazing. My mom does the same. LV Mom. She still does it. LV Mom.
Like a little love letter just from her.
It's awesome. But okay, well, I'm so glad we have joint mother similarities. We also have a love for design. We have a love for branding. We have a love for fonts. I freaking love fonts. I had a love-hate. I think everybody has a love-hate relationship with fonts. Yes, I'm going to talk about fonts a ton on the podcast today. We're going to talk about what to do when people are copying your work. What's the difference between inspiration and then completely ripping somebody off? And I think everybody can speak, you and I can probably speak to that a lot. And first, I just want to dive in and talk a little bit about your story, how you co-founded Tonic. If we can explain Tonic Site Shop, I think I'll let you explain it in your words for all the awesome listeners.
Yes. So, man, I am an accidental website designer. I have almost no formal design training whatsoever. I took one course at my classical liberal arts Christian college called Print Media Graphics, and it was entirely focused on learning to lay out newspapers. And so that was the extent of my design training was that. I also did a lot of time playing with print shop product in middle school, which was like a greeting card software. So that was really my formative design education, was like greeting cards for my mom. And that's really my formal training. But I fell into design as a journalist. And so as the editor of my college paper and newspaper, that was my first decision, was like, we better redesign this thing because no one reads it. And so maybe if it looks nice, then people will read it. So that's kind of how I got started, was in editorial and then in storytelling. And now it's interesting because I think good branding and storytelling have a lot in common. We can touch on that later. But that's how I got started. And when I began, I was doing occasional websites for friends, and I knew nothing about code. So I was introduced to a platform called Show It probably in like 2012 or so. And it was revolutionary to me because I went from having to like ruin a developer's life and tell them like, please move this 2 pixels here, and no, this font was supposed to go over here, to being able to control that myself and bring my vision to life. So I got started, and then, as happens to anyone who experiences some degree of success, I just had this like, oh crap, what did I do moment where all of a sudden I was overbooked. I had too many inquiries coming in, and I realized I couldn't help everyone. And I'm an Enneagram 2, and so I want to help literally everyone. And if you like pat me on the head and say, I need you, I'm like, yes, like I will not sleep for 4 days. You need my help. I am there. And so I was feeling this overwhelm of like, I can't take care of everyone. And around the same time, through a Facebook group, I met this guy named Jeff Shipley, and I had posted up a website that I was designing and about to launch. I think I posted it about 2 a.m. This is before I had kids. I was working at 2 a.m., which I still do now, but 2 a.m. And Jeff commented on Facebook. It was like back in the wild, wild west of Facebook. Commented, I know, 7 years ago. Oh my goodness. And he commented and he was like, hey, your website looks so great. Here are all of the things wrong with it. Literally.
I love people like that. Like legit, if they're really offering value, not just like naysayers, but people who are like, I want to help you just make this a little bit better. I love that.
Exactly. And I had the same response. I think when I've told the story before, people are kind of like, were you pissed? And I'm like, no, I was like, who is this person that went out of his way and spent his time to make what I made better? And that's very true to Jeff. He's like, I love you and I want you to be like the best version of yourself. So I love that. And so we met on a Facebook group and then we met in person a few months later at a design retreat for the same company from Show It. And so we met in person and we just instantly connected. We were like the kids in the back of the class, like making jokes, and really just realized we had so much in common. We were both trained in communications and journalism. We both grew up in like small, like conservative Christian circles. We went to classical liberal arts colleges. We both loved Celine Dion as children. And so
who doesn't? Who didn't have a little Celine Dion moment as a kid? Well, I love that. I think partnerships are so important. And I think you combined with Show It. So Tonic plus Show It equals why Darcy Benicosa has been able to have such a revolutionary website with so much activity, so much freedom. And I think that it's really brilliant. Your templates look like they're so high end. Like I remember beginning templates, and as soon as I got on Tonic, and I found you when I wasn't making a ton of money in my business, and I really wanted to invest. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, this Tonic site is like $1,500 and I could get this other little site for like $299. But I saw with how you portrayed everything, I just thought, no, this is exactly what you need because it's already doing some of the legwork for you. And I was really worried about looking like everybody else, but we've been able to customize with Show It, with what you offer, to create such a strong foundation to making it really easy for me to design all the websites in-house. And I get asked all the time, who designed your website? Who did you hire? And it's like, I did a Tonic site shop and then we do it in-house. Like I don't want my website to be done by other people, and not to take any business away from designers, but I've heard of a few nightmare stories of people like holding somebody's website hostage, or I just never even knew how to log into my old website. I didn't know how to change anything. When I wanted things updated, it was very clunky. I couldn't get in. The designer kept raising her price on me again and again. Like she was this much an hour. And then a month later, she was this much. And then a month later, she was like triple. And I just thought, this is past where I can go. I was glad she was reaching success, but sometimes there comes a time where you just need to part ways. So as far as design and templates, tell me some of the things that people who are looking to up their website game, looking to up their design game, looking to up their brand game. I mean, I'm throwing a bazillion things at you, but I want to hear some of your wisdom about templates, about design, how you got your inspiration. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. What a platform. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem we set out to solve, was people being trapped by their websites and not being able to move as quickly as their business needed to. Totally. And, in this culture, you need to be able to have a website that evolves when you do and changes and shifts whenever you want to add a new offering or you want to refine a service. You shouldn't be held hostage by your own website. You need to be able to have that agility to say like, okay, I'm going to branch out in this direction. I'm going to host this event. I'm going to add this to my page or add new work to my portfolio. And you shouldn't be held hostage by like a random developer in Moldova who speaks languages you don't understand, whether that's HTML, CSS, or Russian, No,
sorry, just to interject, you're making such a good point, because I announced like a New York City workshop without even thinking about it. Like I just put it on Instagram. And then I texted Cassie and I was like, we need this page up like tomorrow. And if it wasn't done with like, Cassie works for me full time, if we had to get on a list for somebody else to put that in, it would have to be weeks. And I sold that workshop out really quickly. Yeah. And having the page, it's like creatives just, I don't know if people are like me, but that was a very random decision that I made. Coronavirus, please go away by November. But like, I just do it really quickly. And to know that we can go in and alter a word or change a phrase or all of those things. And for some of you listening, this may be second nature, but for people like me who aren't super technical, I have a very clear vision, but then the technicalities of trying to move things around frustrate me quite easily. And this combination has been so perfect.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I was just chatting with a client, and her kind of website nightmare was that she'd invested $50,000 in a custom website, and then literally months later, like a matter of months, contacted us and was like, I need a new website because I have to start over. I need another custom design, and I need to be able to like evolve my business. And I know Showit's going to make that more easier for me, and I can actually do some of it myself. And I was like, honestly, like, you don't really need to do a fully custom website. Why didn't you, this template that we have, this design, this was the limoncello design. It's like, why don't you take a look at this? I think it actually has all the things that you're saying you want. And it's only $1,000, not, $50,000 or $20,000 or whatever a custom design is going to cost. And you could have it right now. And it was so crazy because the next morning, that night at like 8 p.m., she bought the website template. The next morning, she emailed me and was like, hey, Jen, just wanted to show you my website. And she had literally built out a gorgeous website overnight in one night that matched her $50,000 website that she'd invested. And since then, she's expanded and added events and added new people and to her team, updated her portfolio, done it all herself. And that to me is like the power that you need as a business owner to be successful and to evolve and grow and not feel like ashamed that your website doesn't even represent who you are anymore, or showcase what you do at its best.
I was really nervous to choose a template because I thought everybody's going to copy this. What are some of your thoughts about that? I think we have changed it enough so that it would be hard to replicate. But yeah, what are some of your thoughts with that? Like, is that a big concern people have, and how do you address that concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think the nice thing about the platform that we have and the templates that we use, number one, I don't think copying has to be an issue in an industry unless it's someone that's, right in the same industry you are, right in the same niche you are. I think that usually we're really aware of who people are copying us. The entire like conglomerate of culture and your potential users, they're going to be less aware and less like, oh, wait a second, I think I saw something like this before. Ultimately, it's going to just cloud and create confusion for the person who's copying. So I think that's a whole nother conversation. But in terms of our templates, the fact is that you can change literally anything on your website with our designs, and you have. I mean, your Amaretto Sour. I don't
even know if we have basis of the template anymore on the darcybenencosta.com, and I really have to give props to Cassie for that because Cassie takes all of my ideas. Like our new homepage has this grid on it, and it has and I wanted like words moving and all of that stuff. I speak the idea, and Cassie really brings it into existence, and that's been like one of the most amazing things. But my wedding website is still very much with the tonic. And I just think you can alter it enough, but then you still have the foundational pieces. If you have to add something really quickly, you go in and add it. And it's just, I don't know, plus images, your words, all of that. I feel like if you're really clear on your brand, then it's really hard to be replicated.
It is. And I think that's the thing, like no one can be you. And so if your template accurately represents you and your brand, and it really sells your unique value proposition, kind of that like unicorn factor that you have in your business, if your website represents that, that's going to be really hard for someone else to imitate and imitate well. So I think that's what our templates do, is they allow you to really bring that unique voice value and perspective into your website in a way that really like kind of boring box templates don't often do, because it's just super limiting. So we love that.
Yeah, I love that too. And I love to ask people who are ninjas at design and branding like you, what do you feel, how do you define brand to people? Like, what are some of the brand elements? Because I think it's a feeling, and then it's words, and then it's elements on the website, it's color, it's logo, it's all of those things. How do you sort of help people get clarity on branding their website? What are key things we should have?
Yeah, I think that's really a great question. And, we're in a culture where brand is such a loaded term now, because, a 12-year-old on Instagram now knows that they have a brand. And I think
making millions. Those little
it's just a strange time to be alive. I think we're also in this culture more aware of brand and the power of brand than we've ever been. People like me go and buy away luggage. We put on Allbirds, we put on our Warby Parkers, and because we're attached to these brands and the way that they make us feel. And we want to be associated with their brand values. And so, one of the things that I describe brand as, I think brand is a narrative. Brand is the story you're telling in a way that other people can repeat. And so it's the way that you're making them feel. It's the promise that you're making them. And it's the story of who you are at your best and what you do best. And the way that outworks is in obviously your visual brand. And so, when you're thinking about your brand, I think it's so important to think about what you're promising someone. What is it about your story that's equipped you to help someone else? And I think that's that's the artistry of branding, is that intertwining of your story and someone else's, and how everything that you've learned, everything that you've experienced has brought you to a place where you can help someone else. And so you can make them a promise that's so intertwined with who you are and what you're good at and what you've been equipped to do well. And so I think that's the thing that is the X factor when it comes to brand in design. It's the promise. It's, I see this problem you have and I'm equipped to solve it because. And I think that's ultimately, and that's something that you understand and are so good at calling out in your websites and in your brand. It's, you have this superpower and I see it in you and I want to help pull it out. And that's, I think, what I love to do as a designer, as say, okay, what is the magic of your brand, and what is it that your customers love about you, and why is it they want to work with you? And then what does it look like, and how should it feel in a website and in a brand and an experience? But I think it's hard sometimes to see that yourself. And so I think it's so helpful not to just design and brand yourself in an echo chamber of just your own voice, because you're not aware of the impact that you have on other people. They are. And so that's one of the best tools that we've used, that we walk people through kind of a brand interview process, which we can link in the show notes. But it basically allows you to get some ideas and crowdsource some thoughts on what impact your brand and your persona and your abilities have on other people. And that helps so much to just get another person saying, like, this is why you're good at what you do. This is what you do so well.
I think talking it out loud, like whenever I coach someone, I just had a one-to-one coaching call and I made her speak it out loud. I loved how you said, what is the magic of your brand? So what is a foundational question we could ask someone? Okay, what's the magic of your brand? I like how you kind of said your brand is who you are at your best and how you help other people. I thought that was really interesting. What are what's a question if somebody wants to know the magic of their brand? What's the first question? Do they start with the problem that they solve?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it does begin with knowing your customer. And I'm a huge Donald Miller fangirl. So I do think it goes back to like remembering that you're not really the hero of the story, you're the helper. And it's tricky in an environment where we kind of like all want to be rock stars, but realizing it's more about who we're serving and why we're able to serve them well. So when it comes to brand, it's looking at your consumer, looking at your ideal customer and saying, what is it that I need to understand about them to be able to serve them well? And I think that conversation is a different thing than like, what am I really good at? And so I love the conglomeration of like, what does my ideal customer need? And then how am I super uniquely equipped to meet that need? And that's, to me, the like, that's where it all explodes, is when you can speak to that on every level.
And I feel like that's so helpful for, let's say, wedding photographers, because I have been to so many marketing classes, so many branding classes, and they're always like, what problem do you solve? And when I was doing only wedding photography, I just thought, I take their wedding photos. Like, this doesn't seem like a major problem. Like, they're in a happy time, they're getting married. What is the problem? And that is how I had to switch it, is not think about what is the problem that I solve, but what is the service? How do I serve them better than other photographers?
Yeah.
And that has helped me get a lot of clarity. I serve them by having a very trained romantic editorial eye, because that's what they want. Mm-hmm. I serve them by the process that I take them to from start to finish. I serve them through clear communication and being a professional, so I think when people really tap into how they serve, especially in the creative field, I feel like that question resonates more with what problem do you solve? Now, when I'm selling coaching or Ninja Bootcamp, I'm like, the problem that I solve is I take these creative people and I teach them how to market their art, because they don't know. Like, that's a very real problem. And that seems more applicable than this bride has such a problem, she can't find a photographer. I'm like, really? Is that a huge problem? Or
then you start trying to put a problem on people and they're like, actually, no, that's not really my problem. Like, oh, you're so concerned that your memories are going to be lost forever. And I'm like, well, like, are you? Like, maybe they just want like a really great wedding photographer. And I think it's a difference between being a product business and a service business in that way as well. And so I do think that it's like, what is the X factor of your service, or like what has equipped you to have like the editorial eye that you do, and how can you explain that well in a way that's going to resonate with your client? But then when it comes to Tonic, for example, we could say like their problem is that they need a great website. But ultimately, like, they have a lot of problems, and there are a lot of ways where we can serve them better. We're giving them a better product. We're giving them more agility. We're giving them better customer service. We're giving them room to grow. We're helping them be confident in their website. There are so many ways that we can serve them. And that was the original need that we set out to meet, which was, there's not a really great template out there. That was the need.
And that's what I was going to say, is what drew me to you is, I can't tell you how long I used to look at fonts for my logo and whatever. And as soon as I saw, I have the Amaretto Sour template, if anybody wants to know. As soon as I saw the fonts, I was like, this is exactly what I want. I want an editorial look. And we discussed changing fonts last year, and none. I had a different designer, and she kept presenting fonts, and I was like, none of these fonts are me. And it seems like such a tiny little thing. I'm like, Darcy, you're just being too high maintenance. Like, poor girl, presented me like 7 different sets of different fonts. And I was like, nope, I'm just going to keep them what Tonic chose, because Tonic got it really right. And I'm just going to leave it here. And we haven't changed hardly any of the fonts. We added one new one into the brand, the website, darcybenincosa.com, the coaching one. But how do you, I feel like Tonic really has done some more research and has a better eye for grouping them. Is it true you should have 3 fonts on yours? Like,
man.
Let's be super
This is
nerdy.
Sexy talk, Darcy.
Let's do this. This is like amazing. Where's my glass of wine? Let's talk about fonts.
I can do
I just have water in a
talk
mason
with
jar.
Jen and Darcy all day long. So fonts are my love language. People collect shoes, they collect purses. I collect fonts. That's my indulgence. I browse fonts late at night into the night. That just was really what gets me going. And I love to talk about this. And I'm really glad to hear that you like the font book. That is something I obsess over. And I think it's because I know that people read words when they're laid out beautifully. Mm-hmm. And that's why I believe fonts are so important, because that is really... That. Oh yeah, there you go.
People read words when they're laid out beautifully, because that's such an important point. because so many people aren't reading websites, but I feel like they read mine because I give them space and beautiful.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Keep going.
You're drawn in. When a story is told beautifully, think about every good movie that you've ever watched. You're in the story, you're watching it, you're captivated by it, you want it to unfold. And that's what a great website should do. And a huge part of that is how you convey your words, not just the layout, but the actual words themselves, I think is so important. And by your font choices, you're telling your reader what's most important, what's less important, what's a larger chunk of a story that they actually, need to really pay attention to. And you can give them a feeling of editorial or fine art or fun and interesting and personality. All of that to me is done through fonts. So I like to say that you should have between 3 and 5 fonts in your repertoire. And the biggest thing for me is I'm doing this in video, so I'm going to have to translate this on the podcast, but you need to make sure that each of them individually pair with the rest of the fonts. And so I think where people go wrong is they have one headline font, one subhead font, one paragraph font, and that's all she wrote. And maybe they have like some sort of accent, but they don't play with the scale of those fonts and they don't mix and match them. And so as a designer, that's one thing that I do that clients always seem to appreciate is, I take the script font, I put it with the paragraph font. I have the subhead with the script. I have the header with the paragraph. And you want to make sure that they are all telling the right story together. The other super important thing when it comes to fonts is you're telling your reader, like I mentioned before, you're telling your reader what's most important. So we call it the scan test. If someone scrolled down your website and they only just looked at the big things, they should be able to understand the story you're telling just with the scan. And what people do is they hide the really sexy things in the paragraph font that's no one's going to read because it's 12 points and it's very deep on your about page. They hide the really great content really small and they make their headlines things like about me. And the journalism with me just dies a little because like your headline, the biggest thing on your page needs to be the most interesting thing on your page.
So true.
So go to your website. If you're reading this right now, go to your website, give it the scan test, see what someone would see if they just did a quick mindless scroll down and start pulling out the most sexy bits of your website, the part that's actually containing the narrative. Also, reviews should also be larger. And anything that's your brand statement should be large. Any bits of your about me that are really designed to connect with your ideal client, you can pull them out as a pull quote. That's one thing we've done in the Amaretto Sour template that I think was really effective. But those font choices are more than just aesthetic. They're really strategic. And I think that's where your brand narrative can really come to light.
Yeah, I agree so much. I've been doing website reviews for probably 3 years. And when I do them briefly on Instagram, I try to address those. But when I do them really in depth on Ninja Bootcamp, it's like we go through their words and we're like, this should be big. Do you understand that? This should be small. We need to bold this. We need to get rid of this. There's so much. And I don't know if you and I, just because we had I taught journalism as well. And because we understand headlines, news, maybe we're just older. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe we just have been around longer. And so we understand what makes a compelling headline, but really testing those out and then, using those in SEO, which we won't get into this, but I just think the scan test is so important. And sometimes people can't see what they can't see. Sometimes they think something in their business is the most important part, and it's really not. And they usually have it drawn. It's usually the thing that's not making them any money. And then the thing that does make them money, they're afraid to draw any attention to at all. They just are like, I don't want to sell. I don't want to have an offer. I'm just going to put these images. I'm just going to kind of talk a lot about nothing. And I'm not going to draw attention.
Here's an inspirational quote.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And I think that is the interesting thing. And you're right, that feels intuitive, but when you're in it by yourself, sometimes you're not thinking, okay, what's the biggest thing that should be on my homepage? What is the thing that my client wants to see the most. And one of the things I've been explaining to people recently is increasingly, I don't think this used to necessarily be the case, but now you have to imagine, what if someone didn't go past your homepage?
Yeah.
What if they only saw your homepage and were there for a few seconds? Your homepage should basically be a self-contained brochure for your business, because think about the fact that if they only see that, what do they see? They need to see your face. They need to see a brand statement that says what you do, who you do it for, where you do it, and why you do it really well. And they need to see that. They need to see a lot of your work. So photographers commonly will have like one big image and maybe like one other image on their homepage. And I'm like, no, like they're going to your website because they're curious about your work. So give them a taste, like give them a really great invitation to dive deeper on your website, and your homepage can do that. But you've got to expand it. So we just did a new update for my client, Jenna Kutcher. Her website, her homepage just scrolls a long time. But by the time you get to the bottom of it, you're like, I know this person and I like her.
Yeah.
Right. And you have such a sense of an understanding of the brand. So I think that's another great thing to evaluate about your homepage is like, is it a really good brochure for my business? Does it have my key offering, my prime offering really sexy somewhere that people are going to want to click on? And if it doesn't, that's a great thing to start by reformatting.
Oh my gosh. If people only listen to the last 2 minutes of what you said, this whole entire podcast, like that right there was so much gold. I'm going to go review my whole homepage and just double check. Tell Jeff to come on it and just tear me apart and let me know.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to have other eyes on it. I think it's important to get people who have been in the design and brand world for a long time. I'm a huge advocate of website reviews and portfolio reviews because we are learning. And, you know, who I was as a photographer 1 year in versus now, like, it's truly, I mean, hire the right people, hire people who actually understand this. I had one portfolio review and the person had no idea what they were doing. And I was like, there is $500 down the toilet. Like they have no idea how to give me feedback. You have to really find the right people. But I think it's so important to get that feedback and to just have other eyes. And, you know, one thing I used to be in a Facebook group and we would do this for each other. We would just go in and look at each other's websites and say, from what I just saw, had I not known you, this is the experience I would have had. This is what I think you do.
Oh, and so good.
It's very key to do that. So
I think that's one of the key things that we see most often is there's just this sense of website neglect that people suffer from because they have a huge launch. They launch their website. There's like Instagram giveaways and confetti and like excitement. And then they literally do not see it again or look at it again until they feel like they need to rebrand like 3 years later. And the sudden urge of like, but they haven't looked at it. And so they don't have any idea on a daily basis what their customer is interacting with, what is like the biggest sales tool, in my opinion, that you possess. You can just leave it and just like let it sit there because you're worried about, you know, breaking it or you don't feel like you have the bandwidth. And I'm such a huge advocate for like the mini makeover, you know, go in, add 10 beautiful new images. That is why you're good at what you do. That's great. Please take that away. Go start fixing your website once a month. But like
we launch it once a year, but like every week after the launch, we did not have everything ready. I'm still curating the galleries on the photography site because it will never feel done. But every week we try and do a couple of hours on it. And I just believe that you can always make it better. You can simplify it. You get a better, you'll say a phrase to a friend and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a better phrase than what I have on there right now. I'm going to go change that. We're always changing copy. I've gotten positive, negative feedback. Like I had one headline last year and somebody was like, this headline deeply offends me and it makes you sound mean. And I was like, interesting. Let me look at that. Like I thought it was more my personality. Like it was like, stop being boring, you know? And I was well, I think that's really funny because your branding is boring and I want you to stop that. And they just thought, how rude for you, you know? And it was like, it's really important to get feedback of how people are processing what you do. So I think every website needs a little mini makeover at least every 2 months to go in, update. I'm a big advocate of if you're a photographer and you photograph like the dream event, you need to go in and add it very quickly and then take away the one you're least excited about.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Always looking at like, what am I least excited about on here? It's time for that to go and replace it.
And like a general rule of thumb is if it's all over your Instagram, it should be on your website. And there are so many times I'm looking through a client's, website and looking at their Instagram and I'm like, where is this wedding? Like, this is amazing. Like, well, I really haven't had a chance to cull that yet. And I'm like, you don't need to cull it. This perfect image that you put on Instagram, this should be on your website right now. Like this is what you want to shoot 25 more weddings of. So don't wait until you're off season to put that on. Put it on now because you're going to book that client next week who saw that one image that you added to your website. And that's so powerful. But people wait until they have time to redo everything. And that's so unnecessary. They don't need to do that. And like you said, so many times in conversation, someone will say something that is so the most articulate distillation of their brand possible. And I'm like, that is your headline on your website. Like that needs to go up tomorrow, right now. And so I think it's really cool just in the business that I'm in and with Tonic and with Show It, you can go through and be like, okay, like today in 1 hour on my lunch break, I'm going to go in and edit put images up, change my headline, boom, done. I love that.
Yeah, I think I was victim of not doing that. Like when I was in these middle years, probably 2011 to 2014. And I don't think I updated it very often just because I was so overwhelmed in my business and it just seemed so time consuming. That's why I think if you can give yourself a break and put 1 or 2 images up, do something with that. Now, I've been to a lot of marketing conferences and the jury is out. I'm of one belief that websites are still very, very important homes for people to come and visit. And I've heard other people say websites are obsolete. All you need is a sales funnel page and a landing page, and that's it. And what are your thoughts about that? I just feel like that is not my business. I feel like that's whenever I hear a dude in a marketing conference being like, you only need a landing page. I'm like, right? You do not sell art. You do not craft a good story. I don't know what you're selling, but I don't want to buy it. That's my 100%. Opinion, so, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, so if you're a 55-year-old white dude, like, sure, you don't need a website. No, I definitely believe we're in an era where more than ever, people, all things being equal, are going to choose where to put their dollars based on who has a better website. And I think that you look at one restaurant and you look at another one who has a great website and you're like, I want to go there. If I'm looking at a place to buy a bra, a place to buy my suitcase, I'm sold on the branding. And we are smart cultural consumers at this point who value a great experience. And to me, we know a good experience.
We know when we're being led through like a sales funnel, which I don't think those are bad. I have them in mind. I've tried to make mine very much service oriented.
Right.
But yeah, I think I go to marketing conferences and so many people are getting rid of their websites. And I just think it is such a place for people to feel part of your community, to feel like they get to see, especially if you update a lot, which is another reason to update, because I do little things throughout the year that keep people going back to the website, which then helps me be found easier, linking, all of those things. So
I think it just like helping someone understand who you are and inviting them to walk through a process with you and helping them understand what your services are and your offerings. That's such a different experience than, hey, glad you're here, buy this thing. Yeah. And I feel like we're so, that is so discordant to us as a consumer. And that's why we really fall in love with brands that tell great stories and make us feel something and interact with something. And I think a website does that. I think the common understanding is that you have 0.08 seconds to really grab someone online. And I think a website definitely has that capability. Whereas a sales funnel, you just feel like it's a gimmick whenever that's your first expansion of a brand. That might be a natural expansion after you've already understood them. But if that's the first handshake, I don't think that's what you want your handshake.
Or it's something that you're not emotionally connected to. Like I think I bought a pair of stick-on eyelashes from an Instagram ad. I was like, yes. And it was just a sales page. And I just did that. It was like $20. I was like, I'm going to see if these things work.
Right.
that thing can be a sales funnel. But when you're selling art, when you're selling valuable creativity, when you're selling these kinds of things, they have to have an interaction with you, I think, especially.
Or yourself, when you're selling yourself too.
When you're selling yourself. Yeah.
Ultimately, like that's the thing, like a sales funnel doesn't sell a person very well. So I think that, you're exactly right. Like, you know, when it comes to like a quick and easy fix, especially when it doesn't have many dollars behind it, I think a sales funnel is totally fine. But I was joking with Jeff yesterday that I spent 25 minutes looking at reviews for a bronzer on Sephora that was like $20, you know? And
I read reviews like crazy. And if they're like, it could have almost 5 stars and then somehow I'll read the 3 bad reviews. I'm like, no, I don't trust it.
I know. I'm like,
I really don't understand. The power of reviews.
Like, Sephora doesn't do any sort of filtering where like the best reviews are at the top. So it's so funny because you'll see like a product that's 5 stars and the first 3 reviews are like, my skin is completely peeling off my face because of this. And you're like, what? Like, just do mascara. Like, what happened to you here? But I think it's so interesting because I feel like social proof, having those reviews, having your customers tell your story for you, that's the thing that I think your website can really put across. That's not even you. And that's the biggest, to me, like that's the biggest value that a website can offer, is when you can cycle in the reviews and the social proof that says, guess what? I am who I say I am. I'm able to do what I say I'm going to do. Here are the stories of the people who can prove it for me. This isn't an empty promise. That reassurance is just like priceless.
Especially in a world of scams, copycats, people trying to do things before they're ready. Like, just, we need to have that validation. So that's so key. Okay, well, I think we're going to get ready to wrap this up, but I could keep talking to you forever. Do you have any other little tidbits about branding, design, choosing a design that works for them, understanding their brand that you want to leave with us? If not, it's okay. I'm putting
5,000. Yeah.
I know. There are so many.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to thinking about a website design that would work for you, I think it's so important to consider the general way you want someone to feel when they're interacting with your website. And I think that's, to me, the biggest thing that people miss often is they'll go like, do I like this? Do I like the design? Do I like the fonts? And they don't consider like, what do I like about the way this feels? Or how does my home feel? And we just met with a custom client the other day, and her home is like the most beautiful thing. It's white. It's like a farmhouse. It's so cozy. And then you go to her website and it did not feel like her brand at all. And it was discordant. And so it was fun because it was on the call. And I was like, you know what? Like, your website needs to feel like your house. It needs to feel peaceful and spacious and welcoming and homey and cozy. And I think there's some visual cues that we can do that communicate that. So if you're trying to figure out like, what's your website style, or you're looking at Darcy's website and going, man, this is so awesome, I should just have this. No, don't make that decision. Sit down and think about, okay, how do I want someone to feel when they interact with my brand and my website? What should it feel like? And then take a look at the spaces around you, or the spaces you love to be in, and think through, what is it that I love about this? And how does that translate to my online home? Because that's ultimately what you're building for yourself, is a place to welcome your customers in and make them feel like home, where they can understand who you are.
I agree completely. You are pure gold. I'm sure everybody is going to want to have you build their website. Jen only takes on a very limited number, so we're going to do something that you were gracious. You just offered it to all the listeners that they can get 20% off one of this templates on the site by the code Play It Brave. Yay! Yeah. And that is so gracious. Thank you so much for that. I think that is amazing. We're going to have this link in the show notes. And if you guys want to go in and buy a Tonic site and unlock the magic of control and excitement for your websites, I will be behind Tonic my entire life. It has just been so amazing for me. And it was the only template I ever saw that made me excited. Like excited enough when I was a little stressed about money to be like, this is totally worth it. You're not, because I had a $2.99 one ready to buy. And it was like, you're going to do this. And this site it's going to get you to the next level where you need to go with your weddings and how you're presenting your brand. And it totally has. I am so proud to send people to my websites now. I don't hide them. I don't want to not show them. I have relevant work on them and I update them all the time. And they've been such a beautiful connection point for me to live my life as an artist, as a creative, and bring people in. So thank you for creating that, Jen. Like, you gave me so much. Like, I just want you to know how far reaching your creativity and your talent and what you and Jeff did, like, it like really has affected my life. I know this sounds kind of silly and I'm getting like teary for some reason, but like it really has totally changed the face of my business. And you did that. Your genius did that. So thank you.
We are so proud to have given you a platform to unlock the magic that was what you're doing in the world. And I think that's the magic about your website. It's who you are. Mm-hmm. And so it means so much to me that you feel that way and that we were able to equip you with the tools you needed, because it really was just unleashing you. And so I'm so glad. And I'm also going to go update our website with that review right now. So
do it. I'll send you it verbatim. I'm going to go right now.
Follow my own advice.
It's so true.
No.
I would love to be the first review on there. I can't believe I haven't sent you over one yet, but yes, we're writing that down.
I recorded this. Don't worry. It's already up. I just sent it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, every word. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your energy and your time and for helping creatives find a space to really stand out in what they do and who they are.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure from beginning to end.
You've been listening to the Play It Brave podcast. Love what you heard? Wonderful. You can shout about it in the reviews. I bet you know someone who needs a shot of self-belief. Then don't keep us a secret. If you've missed something crucial, we've got show notes for this and all past episodes over at darcybenandkoza.com/Play It Brave. Thanks for tuning in, but don't forget, the world teaches you to play it safe. Stand up, stand out, and start playing it brave.